Good. 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 Enough. As good enough.
Mark, it's been a crazy week for me, a crazy day for me.
Yeah, well, I'm just glad
Lucky to be on this podcast right now, to be honest with
you. Well, what you mean? This is beyond the wheel coming through and almost smashing.
Yeah, that missed me. The other stuff is hitting me. So, like you know, we're actually doing staffing a country music festival this weekend.
I know. I tried to sign up to volunteer for cleanup or whatever.
Yeah, well, we went out. Ava and I went out there today and talked to them. So it's crazy. I mean, it's getting real. So we had to find all these people to work all these shifts. So, and then today, you know, it starts tomorrow. Today they changed the plans on us.
Oh my gosh! So, by the way, why do you have to find the people?
We're the staffing agency.
Okay, so
they're hiring us to.
Okay, got it.
People there to clean up.
So you dropped the ball waiting too late to get volunteers or to get people to work.
No, they gave us a schedule. We staffed it, and then today, an hour ago,
they moved the goalpost.
Changed the schedule.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
that's all right. Anybody willing to write you a check, you know, you kind of listen to them.
Right. Plus, Murphy's in all of our lives.
Murphy's in all of our lives. That's
in all of our businesses, whether it's a farm or staffing, Murphy gets involved.
How was your week? So how's your week been, Mark?
I tell you, it's been good. You know, I'm getting closer to taking over my year at Rotary, and I've been weed whacking and mowing. We got 2 events there in the farm this week. So
you did a wine festival or something this weekend, right?
Yeah, we had the wine festival, wine and beer homemakers festival. Basically, it's homemade brews and wines that people have made, which is great. Tammy and I did that, and we thought a cheese charcuterie cup.
Yeah, I saw. Nice.
Would be a great seller.
Not really.
Yeah. I don't think this was so.
Well, maybe you should have just brought a package of Oscar Mayer bologna and some crackers.
That's what
maybe that was that kind of crowd.
Just chopped them up and then put a toothpick on there and then go, there you go.
Hillbilly hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah. Hors d'oeuvres. So, so no, it's been good. You know, I tell you, Sam, I think I'm going to get, you know, that surgery I had. I think I'm gonna go back. I think I'm gonna go back and get the alternative.
Fund.
Yeah.
Well,
because I tell you, this has been.
You gave it a shot.
Well, yeah, man. I've been giving it a shot all over town. So. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, we got a great.
What I love about you is your sense of humor, Mark.
We've got a great guest today, Cort Casady. Man, I'm so excited about this guy coming on.
Me too.
He is a terrific guy. I've known him for a long time and known those kids. He's for our listeners, we'll let Cort explain it all, but he's written a book called Not Your Father's America. And it talks about the trials and tribulations he and Barbara had, first of all, getting pregnant. And then they had to go through the whole what do they call that? IMF? Infertility drugs and stuff. They kept 3 embryos and all 3 took, and they wound up with triplets. So,
wow. I did a little homework on it. I didn't get to read the book, but I did some homework on the guy. I'm really interested in meeting this guy. I really am.
Yeah.
Well, he's got an interesting career, and
yeah, he's had a great career.
Anybody associated with Mel Brooks and Martin Short, I mean,
yeah,
they got my attention right off the bat.
And Roger, Country West is Roger Miller. You know, I'd like to get him down up here to do the Roger Miller story at our playhouse, at our theater.
So
I don't know
what's
what that-
what's the Roger Miller connection then? That you're talking about?
he wrote, him and a partner wrote this play about Roger Miller. He knew Roger Miller very
Oh
well.
wow!
And
Trailer for sale or rent?
huh?
50?
Yeah. And so he wrote this play, and they did it at the Laguna Playhouse. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, and he in the book he talks about in the early days when they were deciding whether or not to have babies and triplets, because they were older. They were actually having dinner with Roger out in Albuquerque or someplace, and so there's some great little anecdotes in there. But anyway, it's a fun read. Tell you what, let's. By the way, just so you know, we're brought to you by our sponsors are the Ripe Choice Farm and Catering. That's ripe, like a piece of fruit. Ripe Choice Farm and Catering, Farm Stay and Catering, and my Happy Friday Neighbors newsletter that comes out the last 25 years, comes out every week at 4 a.m. every Friday. Happy Friday Neighbors. Sam?
On my end, here in beautiful Bloomington, Illinois, in the middle of the United States, we're sponsored by Pride Staff, Bloomington, and Pride Staff is a full service staffing company. We do office admin, warehouse, light industrial, and apparently we do country western concerts on the weekend. And also by a racing team that Pride Staff sponsors, and we're always looking for more sponsor money, Punk Racing. And by the way, Punk Racing is second in the nation in 160 class, second in the nation in World Formula class, and third in the nation in senior Honda, and headed to a national race this weekend. So you've got a few bucks and you want your name on a race car, Punk Racing.
Cort's on, by the way, so we'll need to get over to him. But
All right.
Every time I see a post about Punk Racing, it's always in the winner's circle. So not bad.
You want to get a job fast, go with Pride Staff. Punk Racing, fast get. Let's go meet Mr. Cort. See you on the other side.
All right. Quick. All right. Cort Casady, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring him on. I'm going to have him explain a little bit more about what Cort does, but he wrote the book, and we're going to talk to him about it, Not Your Father's America. And here he comes. I hope he lets us see his pretty face by bringing up the video. Cort?
Hello, can you see me?
No, we can't see you. Is
Well,
that on purpose? Is that on purpose?
Yeah, it could be.
Up in the top right corner, look at.
How about that?
Ah, there he is.
Oh, look at there! Oh,
Hey,
he's so dignified, and oh, look at
gallery.
that! Yeah,
Let's go full screen. Yeah, all right.
nice. So, we kind of teed you up a little bit, Cort, but I really, by the way, it's great to see you.
Likewise.
I haven't seen you in a while, and did you guys move up to? You may have had it in the book. I didn't see it in the book.
We moved to
we
moved to PV from Manhattan Beach.
Oh, you went to PV.
So about
Yeah.
5 years ago, we sold the house in Manhattan Beach where we raised the kids and moved down here to PV. And we were unfortunately trapped here during COVID.
Yeah.
Beautiful place to be trapped, by the way.
Hey, down here.
Is that down here? Is that Sam?
Sorry. And this is my buddy Sam Lewis, my co-host. And good enough.
So tell me, there's so many Sam Lewises in the world. When I went, tell me, are you in? Help me understand who you are.
I'm at, you know what, in a bell curve. I'm on the left leg of the bell curve of Sam Lewis's. No, I'm below some kind of average. Mark and I went to high school together.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
I claim to fame, and that's kind of it. You know, he went off to be an actor and an entertainer and tried to drag me with him. And I said, I think people starve to death doing that.
Yeah, it's true.
Got a job in a factory.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of it. And then we kind of
Then he ended up running the factory. So
ended up running a factory. And
What was the factory?
the factory I ran made pieces and parts for the door and window industry. And the one part that you may know that we made, we were the sole suppliers for window screens for Anderson Windows.
Wow.
You know Anderson Windows.
Yeah,
That's big.
So, and I was out on the West Coast a lot in California. We had customers there, Geldman and some other, and then I put a factory in Hood River, Oregon, right on the Columbia River to make some of these parts. So, but we want to talk about Cort. And Cort, Mark and I are so cheap, we haven't paid for the expanded version of Zoom. So we only got a few 40 minutes or so, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got an interesting story. I mean, anybody so far.
$12 a month.
All right. I understand.
So far, you're the only guest we've had that has Emmy sitting over their right shoulder when we're talking. So,
well, I've been promoting my book, and so the publicist said, you need a background when you do these Zooms, something other than the laundry area or, the cat litter box, which we have 2 of. So this is it. This is as good as we could get it.
Well, you can
Pretty
turn
good.
around things like the Emmy and Emmys. And,
Yeah.
Listen, I want to get right into this because as Sam said, I want to learn more about, because I knew you as a dad. I knew the 3 boys and Barbara, of course. You guys are great pals. I'm looking forward to you guys coming up here and visiting, staying. We got plenty of room for you. We could probably even have plenty of room if the boys came.
Okay.
We're out gunned here in real estate and square footage. But
hey, Cort, you remember Green Acres?
I do.
Yeah. Well, this is a little Green Acres.
This is so you're living on a little bit of Green Acres. Is that what it is?
Remember Arnold the pig?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a
Oh
little.
yeah. I follow Mark's newsletter pretty close.
Yeah. You know then.
Yeah.
You know.
So I'm familiar with the characters.
Yeah. Speaking of, you were hammering our guests for not having a background, Sam. What's going on with you? I mean, what is that? I expect you to start writing a magic marker over there on that thing.
It's
in case I want to. You
need to put a shelf back there or put some employees hanging
well,
out.
I have other stuff back here.
There you go. Okay.
There we go. So put yourself in front of that place.
I should. There's Indy 500 track and
there's some restricted parking.
Hamburger joint that burnt down. So
yeah. So anyway, first of all, Cort, just give our listeners a quick snapshot. I know if we went through everything, we'd be here a long time, but there is stuff I never realized you were involved with in your career.
Well, you mean about the book or about the career?
I'm talking about your career. I want to start with Cort first.
Okay. So I come out of a newspaper family, so I kind of had the writer gene. Went to Hollywood, and I was started about writing news magazine articles, and I wrote a big article in San Diego Magazine, a 7,000 word expose of a congressman, that got me my first TV job. It's the weirdest thing. Yeah, the weirdest thing, but it did. Yeah. And because as a writer, you have to have samples, right? They go, well, you got to show me something, right? You can't just say you're a writer. So that got my first TV job. I worked as a staff writer for years on all kinds of shows.
Well, Smother's Brothers.
Yeah, but that I was just a lowly production.
I don't care.
Wow, that's pretty big in my book.
I think we've got to have a show just with you telling us stuff about the Smother's Brothers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Smother's Brothers was really fun, and I was Tommy's executive assistant because I had worked on Capitol Hill.
Wow.
During the summers in college, and so I'd worked for a congressman and all that. I've been around politics, and he said, well, he was engaged in pretty political battles with CBS at the time.
Yeah, yes, he was.
I need someone who's kind of heads up about that kind of thing. And then they put me over on the Los Angeles production of Hair. Do you remember Hair? The rock musical?
Yeah.
Nude scene.
That was Treat Williams.
They put me over on that. And I got
Treat Williams just passed away.
Treat Williams just passed away.
Yeah. And Michael Butler was producing it. I think Michael's passed away too. He was the impresario from New York. Anyway,
Yeah.
we brought the show to LA for the first time. And I mean, I was green as can be. I was 21 or 22. And the lawyer for the company, who ended up being the president of Disney, came to me and said, we're making you the vice president of the Theater of Aquarius Corporation. I said, wow, I mean, great. Does that come with a raise and everything? He went, no.
Give me some money.
Yeah. The reason is you're the only person in the company, including the Smothers brothers, who doesn't have a police record. Seriously. So if the Vice Squad comes in and busts the show for its nude scene,
Right.
you're the one they're taking to jail. And I went, God, I just thank you so much for this opportunity, you know. And so
I did hair.
you did hair?
Yeah.
You mean you grew hair?
No, back in the 70s, I did a production of hair.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's obvious to you guys that I haven't done hair.
Yeah.
We
But
can
that's
see that.
but
Yeah.
see, that's cool too. And then another guy. Anyway, no, never mind.
Well, so I would go in the theater every night, and the lawyer said, "Your job, you should look over everybody in the place, and if you see anybody that looks like they could be, you know,
feds.
yeah, they could be undercover. You call backstage and tell them to kill the lights on the nude scene."
Right. Into the second act.
So I said, "I can do that," and he said, "Yeah, that's your job. Unless you want to go to jail." So I said, "Okay." So I would not very often, but now and then the patrons would go out of the theater grumbling about, "What was a little big deal about the nude scene? I couldn't see."
Yeah. I didn't see anything.
Right. Anyway, that was the beginning.
Yeah.
And then
Rattle off some of the, because I want to get into the book too. Rattle off some auspices.
you mean some of the shows?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I started as a writer on the American Flyer. I worked on the Jim Neighbors show, which was his variety show after he did the famous.
Is American Flyer the movie?
No, it was what American Flyer was a pilot for. They wanted to do an entertainment version of 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes had become a hit, and of course it was a news magazine. They said, well, let's do an entertainment version. That's how I got the job, because they read my magazine article and they went, oh, we're going to need a magazine writer.
Yeah.
And then the minute I got the job, I was asked to write a comedy monologue for Dan Rowan. So it was like, okay. But that's how it works as a writer. You just do what you're asked to do.
Yeah.
And so Jim Neighbors' show, I did the Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters. I did a bunch of specials.
Yeah.
A lot of people haven't done this, but I did the 25th anniversary of the Osmond family.
Wow.
I thought they were only 25 years old.
Yeah, somebody had to do that. And then
somebody had to do that.
Yeah. And a lot of different shows like that. I put the first environmental magazine show on television, and it ran for 5 years on TBS. That was a passion.
Right.
And then for the past 20 years, hard to believe, I've been the supervising producer on the American Film Institute tributes to America's leading actors and filmmakers. So it's the first show I did was Robert De Niro. I think Meryl Streep was second.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing, illustrious.
The last one you got an Emmy for was the Mel Brooks one?
Mel Brooks, we got an Emmy for that, yeah. And in the meantime, before that, I got an Emmy for a show I created and put on the air in New York called New York at Night with Clint Holmes. And Clint is a very talented, light-skinned black guy who was just a terrific host. So we did that. We moved to New York to do that show.
That was an interesting part of your book too, talking about that whole history of doing that show in New York, and then you were fired, but yet you were still paid, and
and that's where we started. That's where we started IVF, in vitro fertilization. Yeah.
Right. Hey, do you know? And I think mostly what I remember is the AFI stuff and Roger Miller.
Mm-hmm.
how did that Roger Miller and I'm backdooring into you and a partner wrote the Roger Miller story, right? Because you
Yes.
in
Yes.
the book you were having dinner with Roger, I guess, a month before you opened, or what or
Well, the first person I ever saw perform on stage when I was working in Washington, D.C. during the summer was Roger Miller.
yeah.
I'd
Wow.
never, I'd seen musicals, but I'd never gone and seen an act like that.
Right.
And he was magical to me. He was hilarious. He was musical. He had songs. It was like, oh my God, one guy can do all this. Many, many, many years later, coming out of the show in New York, Barb and I had dinner with Roger and his wife, Mary, his third wife. And it was one of the last nights of his life. I think he died a month or so later.
Wow.
I thought it was in Albuquerque or something. No, it was New
Yeah,
York.
in Santa Fe, actually.
So
Yeah.
oh, okay, so it was.
Yeah. And so that again, years later led to partnering with Mary Miller to write the play.
So if a person wanted to do that play, would they reach out to you? Is it being done anywhere right now?
No, it got kind of killed off, as a lot of productions did, by COVID.
Okay, but I'm saying we have a beautiful theater up here, Cort,
You could do it there.
and that Roger Miller up here would resonate. I mean, you'd sell out.
How big a theater?
I don't know, 500 maybe.
Wow.
I don't know. It's got a full-on theater and nice theater.
Does the theater produce shows,
Yes,
or is it
yes.
just take incoming?
Yeah, no, they have a regular theater troupe. They do shows there, musicals, all kinds of stuff. They just did.
Yeah.
They also do comedies and plays and little things, and they also use it for, for special events and things like that. But
Yeah.
how fun! You guys could stay up here on the farm, and we did the Roger Miller story at that theater.
Yeah.
I mean,
So it was
obviously you wouldn't. We could have somebody else direct it, but at least it'd be fun to have you open the opening night talking about the show.
It'd be great fun. The show had its premiere at the Laguna Playhouse.
Yeah,
and it was a spectacular run. We got a standing ovation every night.
Wow.
And
well, with those iconic songs and Roger Miller.
Yeah. So
All
it's
right.
sitting in Nashville right now, being considered to come back in Nashville at the Nashville Rep Theater. So I don't know yet what's happening with that. But.
Well, maybe we could try. So, what? On a serious note, how would I go about doing that? Would I email you later and say, hey, what would it take to bring the Roger Miller story up here?
Well, in broad strokes, what it would take is a budget to put a production on stage, and that includes casting. So the key.
I assume we would cast it. I mean, I'm talking about like you do a regular play. We would cast it up here and do all that.
Right, but the trick to this kind of a show is you got to find someone who can really do the Roger Miller part. The rest of it, there are 5 roles.
I would think that would be the big hard part right there. Is talented Roger Miller, and you got to get somebody on stage that.
Let me tell you, we've got some. Okay, just Google it and we'll move on. But the Soper Reece Theater, Soper Reece.
Okay.
Reese Theater, Soper Reece
Right.
Theater in Lakeport, California.
Cool.
Anyway, all right. So I got to tell you, you're writing a memoir. All right. And, we may need to have you back a second time, but you're writing a memoir. What's that like? And Sam, jump in here anytime. You're writing a memoir. What's that like writing a memoir? I mean, you being a writer, you kept journals and things like that. So that's great. Trudy, an author we had on last week, also kept a journal. I don't keep a journal. I couldn't remember half the stuff to put into a memoir.
Right. Right. Well, it's a book is a daunting task. This is my 3rd book, actually, but the first 2 I wrote as a writer for hire. basically a work for hire. So the very first one I wrote for a singer named John Davidson. I don't know if you go back that far.
Yeah,
but
John Davidson. Yeah.
I worked that show. I worked his show as a CBS page.
There you go. So I got hired. I just started as a writer in Hollywood. I got hired to write a book for him. It started out as I was told it was an autobiography. So I dived in. I followed him.
Ghostwriter for John Davidson.
Yeah. So I followed him everywhere. He had a 96-foot yacht that we went to Catalina on. He played at Harrah's in Tahoe, and Harrah's in Vegas, and Harrah's in Reno, and the Hilton actually in Vegas. So I just shadowed him, and then one day I had it outlined, and I was scared as hell because I knew I could write, but I thought this is going to have a Library of Congress number. Like, this is probably not going to go away like a TV script goes away, you know?
Right.
And so I was a little nervous, and I got called in by his manager one day, and John called me and said, "You need to come to the green room." He was doing a show, and he said, "And bring the book." And I went, "Oh." So I put the book in a box, everything I had, and I went to the meeting, and his manager, Sal Bonafetti.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Was it one of these guys?
What the fuck are you guys doing? John, you're not fucking Frank Sinatra, okay? We're not doing an autobiography of John Davidson. What are you doing, Cort? I mean, this guy is not, what do you, and it was like that. And it was like, I thought, well, my job is now over, right?
Right.
Including your life.
And he said, leave the book here and blah, blah, blah. So I did. I left, and I thought, wow, I think I've just lost that job, but nobody told me it wasn't an autobiography. So I get a call the next day from his office, and they said, "You're back on the project." And I said, "Oh, why is that?" And they said, "Well, we read your contract, and you've got a pay or play clause." I wrote the contract myself.
They had to tell you that? They had to tell you.
They had not read the contract. They had to pay me no matter what.
I know. So, but you didn't know that?
I knew that. They didn't know that.
All right.
So they went,
"Oh, so you knew.
we have to pay you no matter what? How about this? Write a handbook for singers." So I said, fine, I can do that. And John and I dived in together and wrote a handbook for singers, and he put my name on it. I said, "You don't have to put my name on it." I signed a ghost deal. He said, "I'm putting your name on it because you've written every word of it." And I said, "Well, that's true." And so that was the first book. Second book was another work for hire. So third book, to your question, was less daunting, but more daunting in a way because it was personal.
Right.
And it was, Barbara's the star of the book, really. And yeah. And so it was challenging, but I had the time, and it's only because of COVID. My business stopped in 2020. All the producing of live events, everything I was doing stopped. And so I just dived in and started writing, and I wrote mostly 2020, 2021, maybe that was pretty much it.
Well, going back to what Mark had said earlier, are you an actual journal keeper, or did
you know what? I'm thrown to be a guy who kind of keeps notes and saves things and writes things down, but I didn't keep a disciplined journal. Barbara, in the second year of the triplets' life, when we realized, okay, we may survive this, she kept a journal for like 6 months daily. I have to give her credit. And then she stopped with that. I kept notes. I kept, Mark, you'll love this. I kept a file called monologue notes. And I looked at it later and I went, what was I thinking? I was going to do a stand-up routine about.
I think it's going to be one of those one-act. It's going to be one of those one-act plays. You were going to.
Yeah, exactly. So I kept stuff like that.
It's going to be Cort Casady.
Yeah, I saved. The schedules we made to keep the kids on schedule, and random stuff. And I wrote down things I thought were funny that they said, and things that happened that were funny.
Great.
And so that all helped. and after we moved, Mark, from Manhattan Beach down to PV, you know, when you move, you suddenly stuff kind of pops up out of your boxes and things, and so
yeah, exactly.
things were popping up, like, oh, look at this. So that gave me the material to work from.
Hey, did you have to, throughout this whole writing, did you find yourself needing to verify everything with Barb, the boys? Because I didn't get a call. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Not with, by the way,
book. I'm a little bummed I'm not in the book because I think there were some alcohol-fueled situations where you could have put me in.
I can't imagine that, Mark. Beyond me that you'd say something like that.
I don't think we got your check, but it may have just, yeah.
So it was a pay to play. Okay.
It was, yeah. So, but the boys, I did not have to say, well, we sat down one time when we found all these funny things and read it down as a family just to laugh. We laughed our asses off. And it was then that I thought, well, maybe there's something here that I could turn into a book. But after that, I never consulted the boys. Barbara read every draft.
Would you have written, and sorry, Sam, jump in here. Would you have written the book if you had not had the infertility issues? Was that a jumping off place for you?
Well,
and I know it's kind of a letter to your sons. I love the letter. By the way, I should somehow print that all out and.
Oh, the one I found, yeah. I think if we had gotten pregnant with triplets naturally, yes, there would still be a book.
Yeah.
Well, you had triplets. That's a story by itself.
Yeah, that in and of itself was so alarming and dangerous and scary and challenging.
The thought of twins was a terrifying thing to me, let alone triplets.
Well, here's the thing.
No, I don't have twins. The thought of it.
Right.
I know. And okay, when we lived in Dallas, we had a neighbor, the Jacksons, really great family. They had triplets. And I remember going over there, like, I don't know, probably a couple, 3 months after they were born. And I knocked on their door, just walked over, their neighbors, right? So I knocked on the door. She opened the door, and there was Les. She goes, "Yes, what do you want?" I mean, tense.
Yes.
3 of everything, just like you say in your book. You know, it's, you know, you need 7 pairs of pants for 1 kid. Well, that's 21 pants.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and I mean, we talk about those of us who have 3 kids. We talk about the issue there of 3 kids of you know,
hand-me-downs.
One is 1, 2
yeah,
is
they're
2.
Going through time. They're going through
10.
one at a time.
But we complain because we said 1 is 1, 2 is 2, 3 is 10. It's like exponentially just throws you out of whack because you're outnumbering. Triplets.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like you said, Dr. Joel. What? You kept that embryo?
The moment of truth was Barbara's. We've had the procedure, and she's getting an ultrasound, and so her bare belly with jelly and an ultrasound thing, and he's moving it around, and he goes, "Oh, look at this!
Yeah, yeah.
You're pregnant." And we kind of look at each other, and oh. And then he goes, "Oh, look at this! You've got twins." And I thought, without saying anything, I thought, "Beautiful, we're done."
Yeah.
Body. And then he goes, oh, look at this, number 3, you've got. And I went, no, go back. You counted him, or you got to go. No,
recount. I demand a recount.
I demand a recount. Exactly.
Demand a recount.
So he goes back and he goes, no, 1, 2, 3, and we left that office just freaked out.
Yeah,
because we had lost a little baby girl.
I would have shit my pants.
I know.
And it just brought up
every fear, right?
Yeah, brought up every fear we had.
Is that when you started day drinking, or when did that happen?
Yeah, that's right. We told the boys, we drink because you cry.
If I become an alcoholic,
Actually, yeah. But the pediatrician we went to, they were like 6 weeks old whenever you take your babies in the first time. And the two of us with 3 car seats. And I guess I carried 2 and Barbara carried 1. And we get up to the doctor's office and he has us unpack them and he's looking at them and weighing them and everything. And we go through and he says, oh, they're good, they're healthy, you know, how much are they eating? And we went, how would we know that? We hardly got here, much less would know, you know, really?
We
And he
haven't
said,
got
"No, you're
And they're
good," you know. What?
we don't have no idea.
No idea. And so he says, at the end of the thing, we pack them up and we're ready to go to the car. And he says, you can get through this with a sense of humor and a well-stocked bar.
Right.
And
that was a
stopped at-
wise man. That
Yeah,
guy.
we stopped at the liquor store on the way home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could you could use that in a lot of places, right?
But
Hey,
to your question, yeah, I think I would have written the book had we had triplets anyway at all. But the way we had them was
But
Did you-
it sounded like I haven't read the book, Mark has, but I did a little bit of homework, and it sounds like had more to say than just I had triplets. It says you could talk about the world that
environment.
they're coming into, and
yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And that was important to me. Because I wanted the reader, any reader, to not only know the kind of narrative of what we went through and the good and the bad of that, but also to know some context, some for where this is all happening. So in 2000, for example, when the boys are 5 and they're asleep in their cribs, George Bush was being appointed president of the United States, and we're apoplectic in our bedroom going, what the hell?
Well, that was because Gore, that was the infamous Gore won the popular vote.
Yeah.
Jeb
Yeah.
Bush was governor of Florida. Florida
Yep.
raised, I think, wanted to, recount and all of that. And
Yeah. So it was like things like that were happening in the world. I remember reading, we put the boys to bed one night and I got a copy of the LA Times and I'm reading it and I'm going, what Facebook? What is Facebook? Right. And it had just become a like hundreds of millions company. And I went, this thing didn't ever exist until yesterday. Right. And so there are these things happening in the world, our world, by the way, not the greater world, but in our country. The meltdown in 2008, we had 2 mortgages on our house. You know, it meant something to us. The boys didn't care, you know, but later they might look back and get Braden, who's in the finance industry today. I wanted to notice that when Wall Street changed, which was when Goldman Sachs became a public company, the folks that bought Goldman Sachs from the family that owned it, the family said, don't take this company public. It's not what we do. We're Goldman Sachs. And they went, right. And the minute they closed the deal, they took it public, which changed Wall Street.
Yeah.
So things like that, but also deregulation. Deregulation.
I think about what you just said about Bush and Gore.
Yeah.
If I'd went back to you today and said, if you think that's bad, here's what's going to happen next.
Right. At the time, Barbara said to me, you know, I'm afraid this is the beginning of the end. And I said, well, that's a little dramatic, don't you think? But to your point, looking back, you go, wow, that was a thing. I mean, 3 of the last Republican presidents have not won the popular vote.
Right.
You know, so
It looks like we lost Mark for some reason. Maybe
pardon me?
we lost Mark for some reason.
Oh, I see that. Mark.
He'll come back on. Yeah, I think maybe this is even another because I am very interested in some of these things that you're talking about. You know, particularly you throw AI in the middle of it and these deep fakes and
Yeah.
you know it is. my kids are grown. My grandkids are in the middle of it now, you know, and it is a terrifying thing to me.
I agree.
Um,
And so I very much wanted that to be part of it. And then there was a kind of a little bit of an internal thing about, well, the word greed in the title, an adventure raising triplets in a country being changed by greed. And a couple of people said, I don't know, that seems a little harsh, you know, and everything. And I said, well,
I think that's true. I think, you know,
I do too.
after 2008, when Alan Greenspan was before Congress, you know what he said? He said about, you know, capitalism and everything. He says, because of the way the market conditions were, he says, I underestimated greed.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like that.
He did. He said, I never thought, you know, companies would do this. What?
So
But so anyway, we put it, we're talking about greed in the title, Mark. And so we put it to the publisher and to the publicists who are working on the book with me. And they all said without prompting, I just said, what do you think? Should I change the subtitle? And they all went, no, please do not change it. It gives the book a particular edge. It gives it something that separates it, because it's not a parenting book, really. I mean, there may be some tips in there, but
No, I would never follow any of those tips.
I got to say the worst thing I could possibly say at this point, Mark.
5 minutes
to go.
So yeah, we got 5
Terrible.
minutes.
We should have.
They get the hook out and they pull it quick. So real quick, because I want to get through a couple of things. Like one, what do you want people to take away from this book? What is it that at the end of the day you want them to walk away with?
Great question. So I want people to know that if you commit to something and believe in it and pursue it day at a time, stay calm, you can reach the goal. The other thing I want them to know is the value of partnership. My partnership with Barbara, both as my wife and also as, you know, our partnership as husband and wife, but also as father and mother, has been incredibly important to this. So that idea of, look, there were times when she was pregnant with the triplets, I was freaked out about, are we going to be able to afford this? And she was in the grips of 3 times hormones. Very different worlds we're living in. And yet we came together, looked at our fears together, and decided to go forward together. So that's something, the power of partnership. And then the third thing I think I would say is the value and the possibility of committing to something that scares you. It's kind of, you don't think that's a good thing to do right off the bat, but what we learned was a lot of this scared us, and we committed to it anyway. So there's tremendous possibility and value in believing in following something that scares you.
That's kind of the stoic thing, you know, the obstacle is the way,
Maybe. Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
We're down to 2 minutes and 41 seconds, and I don't want this to shut off. I got like 100 writer questions.
I know.
I'm gonna ask him. I can't. I'm not.
Well, we can do this. We can do this again if you want.
You know, who's your hero? Writing heroes. How did you do this? What do you think?
Right.
You know, so
there's more anecdotes. And we don't even have time, I don't think, to ask. You know, I know. One son is in finance. Jackson's painting, right?
Yep.
And
Carter's a research scientist for Stanford University.
Reece, oh wow, so he's kind of up in the neck of the woods then. Up here?
Yeah, so we got an academic, an artist, and a finance guy.
You got it covered then.
Good. Yeah, you got it covered. Cort,
I don't know what else.
And by the way, the book is available at Amazon.com.
And folks,
we'll put a link in it in our podcasts we'll link it up so people that visit the podcast can link to Amazon and get your-
Great.
And we'll send you.
and I've looked forward to this. I knew this was going to be, I knew it was going to be too short, but Mark and I found if we don't put a constraint on ourselves, we'd be here, you know. But let's do it
Yeah.
again. Cort, I thank you so much.
You are welcome.
I love
And you know
this.
what?
And
You know what I have to say, Sammy, is this was
Hey.
better than good enough.
better than good enough.
So,
Thank
It
you,
has
guys.
been.
I appreciate you both, really.
thank you very much, and
We'll
see you
talk
later.
again. I look forward to
Okay.
it. Bye-bye.
All right. Happy Father's Day.
Happy
Yeah.
Father's Day.
Father's
Yes,
Day.
right. That's Father's Day episode.
Steroids. Happy Father's
Sunday.
Day.
Woo.
Woo. All
Bye-bye.
right.
All
See you
right.
guys.